You like dragons? Imagine dragging these nuts across your forehead.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. This weekend in Germany, reigning IBF featherweight champion Nina Minka will return in defense of the blue belt against the Dominican Republic's Diana Vargas in a fight that we've talked about a good number of times here on the channel already. One or two details that I wasn't aware of at the time that the fight was made. Apparently, it's going to be for 12 3-minute rounds. It would seem that the reigning champion is keeping up with the Joneses and following the trend. Nina Minka sports a professional record of 20 wins with 3 losses and no draws. 4 recorded knockouts, having been knocked out only once in 23 professional bouts to the challenger Diana Vargas, who sports professional record of 20 wins with 2 losses and 1 draw. 13 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 23 professional bouts. The same number of fights as Nina Minka on paper, but their quality of competition is what separates them. Nina is the more world-traveled fighter of the two, the more experienced fighter of the two, having fought as low as featherweight and some years ago as high as lightweight, as high as 135 pounds. Having shared the ring with a more diverse pool of fighters by and large, a more diverse pool of fighters than Diana by a lot. She's been in there with Katie Taylor. She's been in there with Sarah Mahfoud, Daniela Bermudez. She's won some fights and she's lost some fights, all of which rounds her out as a fighter more, I think, than Diana. 33 years old to Diana Vargas, who's a year older at 34. Diana, who was last in action in September of last year opposite the ring, Zaimar Acosta, who she stopped in the first round of a contest scheduled for 8, and that was the only fight that she had in the previous year against a very pedestrian-level opponent, which is commonplace on Diana's resume. As stated, that's what separates them. They may have a similar number of fights, but their quality of competition is miles apart. Stylistic matchup: the boxer versus the puncher. Diana Vargas would be the puncher of the two, hence having more recorded knockouts than Nina Minka, albeit against pedestrian-level competition, girls that really aren't that good. Fighting primarily out of her native island of the Dominican Republic against local girls, whatever girls are around. And what will be her attempt to become a world champion against Nina Minka, the reigning champion, who only fought once last year, the same as Diana, back in May against Daniela Bermudez, who she beat for the second time. Currently on an 8-fight winning streak after having dropped a decision to then-champion Sarah Mahfoud in April of 2022. It's been some years since Nina Minka suffered a loss, suffered a setback. At least setback. Now what Diana is going to try to do is pressure Nina Minka, mow her down, and deliver power shots, power punches. The thing is that Nina's been in there with stronger punchers, stronger, more experienced fighters than Diana, in Edith Soledad Matisse, more recently against Daniela Bermudez 2 times, one of the more decorated women boxers the country of Argentina has produced. Nina beat her twice, and over 12 rounds. So that when she's now faced with Diana Vargas, a more crude, inexperienced boxer, I think that she can handle this assignment, albeit coming off a layoff. Nina would have fought more than once last year, if not for a back injury that she had to have worked on, and this is going to be her first fight since that treatment. So that is a factor, that is something to consider. But I am going with Nina to win a points decision. I think she's the craftier boxer of the two, more agile, lighter on her feet, a little harder to catch. Whereas Diana, she's the kind of fighter looks like she's walking on quicksand. Very flat-footed, very crude. She's slow, punches kind of wide. She is a hard puncher. If she can land, she can do some damage. But I think Nina's going to see the punches coming and counter in kind. This is going to be the 3rd time that Nina fights for 12 3-minute rounds, and I don't think that's by accident. I think that's in preparation for an Amanda Serrano showdown. I've long maintained that the negotiations between these two teams were amicable, and if not for that freak accident right before the fight, Amanda would have fought Nina already. And what was supposed to be her big homecoming fight on the island of Puerto Rico. Now that Nina Menka has an alphabet title of her own, I could see her, if she wins, going back into negotiations for a fight with Amanda Serrano that surely stands to pay her more than whatever she's going to make this weekend. And that if she's been fighting for 12 threes, it's because that's what she sees Amanda's been doing, and she wants to stay ready if that opportunity comes back around. Though not only that, if by some chance Diana Vargas pulls the upset and beats Nina Menka on her own home turf, I could just as easily see Amanda fighting her. Yeah, she could end up fighting either of them. Amanda already saw action earlier this year against unbeaten up-and-comer Reina Tellez. I think she plans on having at least 2 more fights before this year is out, perhaps one over the summer and another in the fall or winter months. Any one of those fights could end up being with the winner of this one. I expect the winner to be Nina Menka. I expect her to keep the blue belt this weekend, and we'll see if she does. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, on the heels of the official announcement of Top Rank's migration over to DAZN, Zuffa made an announcement of their own. Shortly after that, Zuffa Boxing signs Skysports deal, 5 UK events per year. The deal will see all Zuffa Boxing events broadcasted on Sky in the United Kingdom and Ireland. Zuffa will also look to stage at least 5 shows per year on UK soil. Zuffa Boxing chief Dana White said, "The UK has played such a pivotal role throughout the history of boxing. The fans in the UK are some of the most loyal and passionate in the world. When you talk about boxing in that region, Sky Sports has always been the home of legendary boxing fights. There's no bigger or better platform to showcase the best boxing in the UK. This is a massive milestone for Zuffa Boxing. The first event to be broadcast on Sky Sports will be Zuffa Boxing 5, Cortez versus Garcia on Sunday, April 5th, live from the Meta Apex in Las Vegas. Sky have been out of the sport since the final event of their deal with Boxer, which is headlined by Callum Simpson and Ivan Zuko last June. This is a landmark deal for Zuffa. It's definitely a sign of progress, but you tell me, how many Brits do you expect to stay up till the wee hours of the morning to see Cortez versus Garcia? After Sky's fruitful, decade-long partnership with Matchroom Boxing ended in 2021, their future as broadcasters of the sport was an uncertain one, particularly after they decided not to renew their 4-year contract with Ben Shalom's Boxer. But now they're back with a bang. Having signed with Jake Paul's MVP in February, Sky now have a second deal on their books with Zuffa. Pay attention, because what Sky Sports is doing in the UK, leaving wiggle room to work with different promoters, that's what ESPN is rumored to be doing in the US, and they, like Sky, just inked a deal with MVP. Zuffa earlier this year unveiled the signing of British star Conor Benn, who stunned the boxing world by leaving Matchroom and Eddie Hearn to join the upstart promotional company, which is headed up by the ring's owner, Turki El Sheikh, TKO Group Holdings, Nick Khan, and UFC president Dana White. Ben will next fight on April 11th against Regis Prograis. The bout will take place on the undercard of the Tyson Fury vs. Arslanbek Makhmudov fight at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Live on Netflix, Sky Sports and Zuffa will reveal a more detailed fight schedule for the remainder of 2026 over the coming weeks. Zuffa's events are shown on Paramount Plus in the United States, with their last event headlined by Jai Opetaya's win over Brendan Glenton taking place on March 8th. Now I'm going to say the people over at Zuffa strategically placed this announcement to happen right after Top Rank's announcement about their deal with DAZN, as to not allow Zuffa to fade into the background and fall behind. But if Top Rank is on the eve of announcing big news, well, so are we. It's that kind of rationale. I've enjoyed all 4 of Zuffa's shows so far, but you have to understand that these shows are very small scale, and it's hard to imagine that the Brits are going to stay up till the wee hours of the morning for fights like Charles Martin versus Efe Ajagba, or the more recent Jai Opetaya versus Brendan Glenton. They do plan on doing 5 shows on UK soil over there, though comprised of who? What fighters? Frank and Eddie have all the good ones. The Matchroom show that recently happened over there, the rematch between Lee Wood and Josh Warrington, sold out. Frank Warren's recent fight featuring Anthony Kakache and Jazza Dickens That's sold out. The upcoming Fabio Wortley versus Daniel Dubois fight is reported to have sold out. How is Dana White supposed to compete with that by doing just 5 shows in the region? I can tell you that between Matchroom and Queensbury, they're going to do a lot more shows over there than that. To where Zuffa Boxing's 5 shows will be in the shadow of those shows, in the background, and who's going to be on them? I very recently speculated that GBM, a well-to-do promotional outfit in the UK that was doing shows on the DAZN platform, their deal recently ended and was not renewed. I could see them striking up a partnership with Zuffa to have those GBM fighters fight under the Zuffa banner. But those GBM fighters, they're not big names. If my speculations ring true, even if they do, there's nobody under GBM, the likes of a Lee Wood or a Ben Whitaker, the kind of names that Matchroom has, the kind of fighters that Queensbury promotes. So they can do that, but Zuffa would still fall behind in terms of competition. Irish standout amateur Mick Conlon recently imparted some opinions about Zuffa Boxing's future and what could happen. It was intriguing.
How do you feel about Zuffa Boxing so far?
I think they've done well. I don't rate the uniform outfits. I think that takes away from boxing a bit. Boxing's always been about the facades. Everybody dressed up and looking like very glammed in the ring. Whether it was Nas wearing his leopard print shorts and all this stuff. That's always been a part of boxing. That they kind of make it uniform and stuff like that. I think that is where they're making mistakes. It looks like the money has been good, but I think that depends on how long Turkey lasts with Dana before he leaves him. But their shows, they haven't been the greatest, but they're only starting. It's not going to be the finished article right away. I think that they can do something, and they are trying to make big plays, but it will still take time.
Do you think that's inevitable when you say how long, Turkey lasts with Dana until he leaves him?
Yeah, if you look how the relationships with Eddie and Frank have been over the years, they've built up and then they broke apart. They build up, they break apart. It's how long Turkey really wants to stay around. He's the guy in control. He has the money, so the person with the power is the person with the money, and he has the money, so he can dictate to what he wants. And if he just decides one day, I don't want to do this no more, then it ends for most of them, I think.
I don't know that Mick Conlon watches the relay. I don't know that he watches this channel, but I do know that I made that same point weeks ago, that it was all fun in the sun between Turkey and Frank and Eddie and Ben and everybody for a while, and then Turkey decided to shift his focus, work with someone else. Work with Dana, work with Zuffa, seemingly against the same promoters that he was just working with. So it really does boil down to, how long does Turkey stay interested in the sport of boxing? Because there's more talk around Zuffa's infrastructure, Zuffa's uniforms, than Zuffa's actual fights. And the biggest news revolving around Zuffa so far was the acquisition of Conor Benn, albeit through overpaying him. $15 million for a Regis Prograis fight? They're gonna take over boxing and take over the UK by overpaying Conor and signing Callum Walsh. I'm not dumb enough to count them out given their resources and how many fingers are in this pie, but I'm just saying, it's gonna take a lot more than what we've seen. I'll give them grace that they are just getting started. They've only been out for a few months, so I expect more major moves. They're gonna do what they can, and to some degree, I think they can be successful, but it's like I've been telling you for weeks. Them being successful to some degree doesn't mean they take over boxing. It doesn't mean they come into it and monopolize the sport. And a lot of what they can do seems contingent upon how long Turkey stays interested. Would they have been able to acquire Conor Benn without Turkey's money? Just some things to think about. Men's junior middleweight news. Ahead of his upcoming fight with Keith Thurman, Sebastian Fundora wants to fight Virgil Ortiz for the Ring Magazine title on the Canelo undercard. Champions like Jesse Bam Rodriguez and Emmanuel Navarrete are just two of the sport's touted champions who have recently expressed interest to provide chief support to the event that is set to be headlined by Canelo on September 12th. Sebastian Fundora, the WBC junior middleweight champion, wants to be in the mix mixed as well if he gets past Keith Thurman at the end of this month. To make himself an attractive candidate, Fundora, who's born to Cuban and Mexican parents, wants to face the WBC interim champion Virgil Ortiz for the vacant Ring Magazine title. Ortiz is rated number 1 in the division by the Ring, and Fundora is ranked 2nd. I myself take issue with that. I don't think Virgil Ortiz has done near enough at 154 to be ranked number 2 at the weight. He doesn't even hold a real title there. He's definitely a top contender, but number 1 in the division? It would be great to fight on the Canelo card, Fundora told The Ring. I'll be ready to fight again in September after the Thurman fight. There are all kinds of big opportunities for me to be in big fights. It can be against whoever, since there are all kinds of names. I'm going to fight these guys. I'm chopping down whoever steps up. I'm building a legacy. I'll fight Virgil. I'm eventually going to get my hands on the Ring Magazine title, just like my sister Gabriella. The junior middleweight division is the deepest in boxing.
That's debatable.
Featuring champions like Xander Zayas, Josh Kelly, contenders like Jaron Ennis, Errol Spence, and former undisputed champion Jermel Charlo, and former title holders Bakram Murtazaliev and Israel Madrimov. Ortiz, meanwhile, is entangled in a lawsuit with promoter Golden Boy, but should be inclined to resolve the matter as quickly as possible to continue fighting in the prime of his career. The towering Inferno Fundora, meanwhile, a career-long junior middleweight, said he can boil down his 6'5" frame to ensure a variety of career-defining fights can be made. I'm still comfortable at 154 right now, and there are a lot more fights left for me in the division, said Fundora. It's the best division in boxing, and I feel like I'm on top of the world. I'm gonna stay at 154 until we run dry. It's all about working hard and staying humble. I want to take advantage of it since we're here. Before Fundora can be considered as a featured attraction for a Canelo card or a fight against Ortiz and the rest of the field, he needs to get past Thurman at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas while headlining a PBC on Prime Video pay-per-view event. Odds makers expect Fundora to win comfortably. Fundora is installed as a negative 380 betting favorite, while Thurman is a plus 280 betting underdog per DraftKings. It's been almost 2 years since Virgil Ortiz became the WBC's interim champion, and I've not seen him beating the drum for a Sebastian Fundora fight, even though it's been there the whole time, because the same year that Virgil won the interim title, Sebastian won the full one. It was in 2024. They've had this fight in their back the whole time. The focus has been on Ortiz versus Ennis, which I told you, it will not happen. So don't get too stuck on the why of it. There's always a reason why, but the bottom line, I did not expect Ortiz versus Ennis to come together, and it didn't. But this might, with some luck. If Turki El-Sheikh and Canelo want to use these two boys for that show, I could see it happening, in spite of the legal skirmish between Virgil and Golden Boy. It's the money. It all boils down to the money. If Sebastian and Virgil were lucky enough to land the chief support slot on that card, they would both stand to make a lot of money, enough that both of their teams would allow them to box off platform. Irrespective of what's going on, for Sebastian, that would be the first time he boxes on a non-PBC show. He could lose. Yes, but for what fighting on that card might pay out, for Sebastian, it could be worth the risk. He's the one putting it out there, and I'm not against it. The aesthetic of Ortiz versus Fundora makes for fireworks, so if they can make that fight, I hope they do.